What's going on, everyone? In this video, I'll be talking about week 2 of my rock climbing journey where I learned to top rope. So if you're not familiar, top roping is basically where your rope is tied into your harness and that rope is anchored to the top of the route. And the belayer basically takes out slack along the way to keep you nice and tight so you're not falling too much. So in order to learn this, I took a class with my wife and a couple other people at our local movement gym. And we learned a few things. We learned about the harness, we learned how to climb safely and how to belay safely, along with checks to make sure that both you and your partner are safe before starting. So I'll start with the harness. I'm actually wearing it right now. And so this is a basic rock climbing harness. This loop is a central point, but a few of the things we want to check are basically that it's high above our waist, that it's tight both on the legs, of course on the hips, and that it's all straight lines, nothing's crossing over too much. So then once we have our harness on, that allows us to set up as a climber or as a belayer. So we'll start with the climber first. So as a climber, what we're doing is we're first tying in with the rope. So we basically take from our hand to our opposite shoulder length of rope, and we'll tie our figure 8 knot with that, slide that through first the bottom, then the top point of our loop harness, and then we'll trace that figure 8 knot so that it's basically a self-tightening knot, and very difficult to come undone. So we're checking for 3 main things. So it's all about the twos. We're in through 2 points of our loop harness, top and bottom, here and here. We have 5 sets of twos, so basically that figure 8 knot is traced correctly. And about 2 fists extra length of rope, so there's enough rope for it to not really come undone in that manner. Now, let's talk about the belayer. So the belayer also has 3 checks, which are what I call loop, locked, and left, 3 L's. So their carabiner will actually clip in right into this loop of your harness, and then you want to check that the carabiner is locked. So, click it a few times. Make sure that it's secured, and then the lever's on the left. And what that means is that the climber side of the rope is on top, and they can belay safely because of that. So now let's talk about the belayer technique. So when you're belaying, we use what's called a P-bus technique. So that means pull, break, under, slide. So it looks kind of like this: pull, break, move that left hand under, slide that right hand up. And so what that does is it always keeps our right hand on the brake strand, which is very important in order to make sure our climber doesn't fall, and but also allows us to effectively take out slack within the rope, which as the climber's climbing, that slack is going to build up, and so we want to take that out so that they're not falling at all, or at least very far. Now, so we've covered the harness, the climber, and the belayer. Now let's talk about the communication. So you want to have very clear lines of communication between your climber and belayer. So that starts with a few phrases. We have climber saying on belay, when the belayer's ready, belay on. Climbing, climb on. Then the climber says take when they're ready to either take a break or they're at the top of the route, or the slack's gotten excessive. And so the belayer will use that P-bus to take out any extra slack to make sure that climber is tight, and they'll say gotcha. And once they've said gotcha, you can really actually be off the wall. You don't have to climb it in one straight go. You don't even have to rest on holding on the handles. You can actually let go, stay there, shake your arms out, recover a little bit, and then proceed to climb on. So but after the climber says, or after the belayer says gotcha, the climber can either keep climbing, which will say climbing, climb on, or they can say ready to lower, if either partially through the route or at the top of the route. So to do that, right, the slack's all taken out, the belayer will just move the lever of the gree, and that will slowly lower the climber back down to where they can say off belay, belay off. So those are the main things. I think one of the other things that was big about this week was just getting used to being off the ground and climbing in general, it is definitely scary. I'm not big on heights, and for me, it takes a little bit to really learn to trust the equipment. And I think for a lot of people, it does. So something that's also helpful is like doing kind of takes shortly up the way. If you're 5 or 10 feet up the wall, you do a take and you let go. You realize, okay, this is good equipment. I'm safe here. Everything's going to be all right. And, you can do that again at 20 feet or 30 feet up the wall to really get a sense of trust in the equipment and knowledge that you're going to be okay. So, those are the main things I learned this week. Hopefully that's some informative stuff. And next week, basically, I apply all these things to get a lot more experience and do a lot of indoor climbing with friends to build up my rock climbing endurance and knowledge of top roping. So thanks for watching, and subscribe if you enjoyed.